we go.
Okay. Well, hi, everyone, and thank you so much for being here today. We know how busy winter planning can be, so we really, truly appreciate you taking the time to invest in your own education and in your programs. I think I know most people here, but for those that may not know me, my name is Dr. Marcus Mills. I serve as the VP of Winter Activities and the Color Guard Caption Manager for NCBA. Also joining me today is Colin Apperson, our other Color Guard Caption Hood. I want to take a few minutes to ground us in why we're here today, what we observed last season, what went really well, and where we see opportunities for growth as we head into 2026. Today is all about knowing the sheets so you can elevate your show, not changing who you are as a designer or an instructor, but giving you clearer tools to make intentional choices that translate to achievement. Before we get started, I want to say a huge thank you to Grantis Peranda and Ben Wilkinson for the time and preparation they put into today's training. We're really grateful to have them here and for their commitment to educating and supporting our association. So, next slide. Are you presenting, Grantis?
There we go. It's coming on right now.
All right, next slide. So let's start with what worked, because there was a lot of good happening last season. Across the circuit, we saw designers making really smart, intentional choices, especially when it came to training, skill level, and class expectations. Groups that truly understood who they were designing for consistently stood out. We also noticed that more shows are reaching completion earlier in the season, and we want to emphasize and continue emphasizing that matters. When shows are finished earlier, rehearsal time shifts from survival mode to clarity, confidence, and performance quality. And the judges notice this and they reward this. One challenge I'd encourage you to think about as you plan the season is working backwards. Ask yourself, by when do I want my show complete? And then what needs to happen each week to realistically meet that goal? And we know that can be challenging. Next slide, please. Our biggest takeaway from last season can really be summed up simply. Smart choices equal more points. We consistently saw higher achievement from groups that were writing to their performers and not past them, or what we call, the judges might say, like overwriting. Groups that showed restraint when needed, and groups who are letting clarity and completion do the work. So just remember that bigger, harder, faster doesn't automatically translate to higher scores. Judges are going to reward what's clear, what's intentional, and what's fully realized, and the sheets are designed to reflect that. Next slide. And based on last season, there are areas where we're encouraging instructors to dig a little bit deeper. And this is going to come up in our judges training, and our judges are going to look for this. So this is where we would really love everyone to really focus. First is character. Clearly define it, teach the performers to sell it, and encourage them to commit to it fully. The judges can tell when performers understand who they are and why they're moving the way that they are. And truthfully, the audience is going to react differently when the character is fully committed to, I guess I should say. Next, think about the way that you generate effect. Be intentional. Ask yourself, are you using a variety of effects? And when do you want the audience and the judges to react or feel something? If you're not getting the response that you're hoping for in a moment, that's an opportunity to step back and reflect and say, I might need to do something differently. We also want you to spend some real time with the soundtrack, because musicality matters just as much as the choreography, and it shows up across multiple captions. Next, map out your timeline. You have to identify your big moments and build to them naturally. And I know that Grantis and Ben will talk about this more in depth in their presentation, but these are just like our goals. Treat transitions as moments. They have to be planned out. Sometimes the transition is the effect, and sometimes it doesn't need to be seen at all. So just consider that when you're mapping out your show. And then finally, right to the time limit. This is a big one. No rushed endings, no cramming ideas, no unnecessarily long shows. Use your time wisely and intentionally. Set the kids up for success and set yourselves up for success also. And then final slide. We just want to remind you that winter evaluation videos are due January 31st. These are a valuable opportunity for feedback and growth, so we strongly encourage everyone to take advantage of them. And if you're going to championships, it's a requirement to be eligible for the championship title. We'll send out more details as we get close. So today you're going to hear directly from two of our outstanding judges, upstairs and downstairs. Actually, both of these judges judge multiple captions, upstairs and downstairs, so you're in for a treat. This is your opportunity to ask questions, to gain clarity, and a better understanding of how design and achievement connect. And our hope is that you leave today feeling more confident, more informed, and more empowered to make choices that help your group shine. So with that, I'm excited to turn it over to Grantis Peranda.
1 second, Dr. Mills, you did want to mention the amount of time for the evaluation video.
Thank you, Ms. Apperson. I just want to mention, although that we say there's no time limit for the eval video, I want you to challenge yourselves and push yourselves. Don't submit a 20-second clip when you can push yourselves to submit 45 seconds or longer. Factor that into like part of your timeline, because the sooner you get something taught, the more you can continue to build upon that. So just something for you to consider. And you're going to get more feedback early on if you submit something longer. Thanks for that reminder, Apperson. And with that, now I'll turn it over to Grantis Peranda and Ben Wilkinson, who will take us through the sheets and share their perspectives as adjudicators. And again, thanks to the two of them, and thank you all for being here.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Mills. Just want to tell everybody, thank you so much for being here. Try to pick a time that when we weren't all in Winterguard or doing various things. I really thought this would be helpful to the circuit. Other circuits do something similar. Everybody does their own thing. So we're just trying this year. So feel free to take notes. I know this is a virtual format, or just listen in if you're just listening in, doing various things, which is totally fine. I'll be doing downstairs, but first we're going to do upstairs with Mr. Wilkinson.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm super excited to share with you. I put together a little presentation to just kind of go over GE and DA tapes, because these are, or not tapes, sheets, because these are kind of the most vague, I guess you could say, concepts that we judge. The upstairs caption is more about like the intellectual process behind the show and how the students are achieving it. Can you see my slides? I just want to make sure we're good there.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So here's our agenda for this session. So we're going to talk about our goals and overview. Then we'll jump right into general effect, which it tends to be the one we're a little more comfortable with. It's a little more self-explanatory. And then we'll dig a little deeper into design analysis and what that sheet looks like. After that, we're going to talk about how do we apply these shows or these sheets to writing our shows. What does that process look like? And then at the end, we're going to do a little roundtable discussion, because I am sure this might open up some more questions rather than answers. So if you have any questions, we're going to leave some time for that at the end so we can dig deeper and make sure you guys are leaving this with the answers that you're looking for. So our goals today are to understand the WGI, GE, and design analysis captions a little better, learn how judges evaluate effect and design, to leave with a clear, repeatable planning process, and then how understanding scoring language and how to apply that to your show writing. So why use WGI sheets? The reason we switched a few years ago was to align ourselves more on a national scale. And this big difference in design, especially for those of us who've been in NCBA for a while, introduces the design analysis caption into your scoring potential. And so what that does is it kind of gives you a direction to steer your show in to enable your students to have the most success and most effect in their show. It kind of ties in, DA and GE kind of tie in together a lot. So we're going to talk about the differences and the similarities. There's an emphasis on clarity, pacing, and audience engagements on the sheet. It's a build-up system, meaning we like to give points out for what we see that you're doing well. And so when we see something that you're doing that matches the rubric, how can we reward you for that? on the sheets. They also encourage us to focus on intentional design, not just difficulty. And then it scales well for developing programs because you can tailor the concept, which is similar between all classes, but how we judge each class goes a little bit different. So I'm going to try to talk a little bit about particularly the difference between Regional A and A class today. So what is a well-designed show? These were, honestly, I asked ChatGPT about this, and these were some great ideas that it came up with, was that there's a clear concept or theme. It doesn't have to be like, this is the movie we're doing. It can be a concept about something, which we'll talk about later. A well-designed show has intentional musical and visual choices, has a soundtrack that is interesting to listen to, and visual choices that match what we're hearing in the soundtrack to elevate our perception of the show. Logical pacing and development this is how we keep the audience immersed in the show from start to finish using a story arc. Consistent coordination between elements, meaning everything we see on the floor works together to create a design and complete unity. And a well-designed show achieves its effect appropriate to performer level. So whether or not there's, it doesn't need to be that there's a show that has world-class tricks in the Regional A group. It can just be, oh, this is really well thought out, and it goes with the music and creates that feeling of logic and completeness throughout. And then consistent emotional manipulation and correctness of design throughout the show. So is it DA, GE, or both? I kind of made this little, I should have done it in a Venn diagram, but I didn't. So this is just kind of some bullet points that go over each caption and then where the overlap lies. So general effect really focuses heavily on production value. So meaning costumes and props and flag silks and coordination of everything to really immerse your audience into a story. And then there's dramatic contour and placing of planned effects. Is your soundtrack repetitive over and over? Are you giving us highs and lows and different emotions that we get to experience throughout the show? Effective design and staging. How are we using the stage to direct the eye and focus in order to maximize the effect of the choreography that is being presented? And then a range and variety of effects, both aesthetic, emotional, and intellectual. So how are we manipulating the audience with our design choices, with our planned effects throughout the show? Are they spaced out in a way that makes sense and keep the audience engaged and wanting more? Emotional believability. This is a really big one that Dr. Mills was talking about in the beginning, is how do we get each character, every single character in each show, to commit 100% theatrically to their performance and deliver that role in a way that we as an audience get immersed and we believe what they're doing. And then, oh, sorry, typo, delivering effects. Overall, are the effects being achieved? Are they planned out in a way that makes sense? Is the buildup into the effect, is the resolution of the effect clear? And then how you're coming out of the effect and transitioning into the next effect. Design analysis is the correct use of design elements to connect and present events. Something I didn't put here is particularly the use of space, speed, weight, and flow. Those are the 4 major elements of color guard design that we focus on. How we're using motion to connect events. Are we making intentional choices throughout moments and transitions? Are those choices reflective of the soundtrack? I'm going to keep digging into, are they reflective of the music? If the music is big, is the visual big? If the music is small, is the visual small? Design looks at a variety of imaginative design choices, both in your big moments and the transitional effects. And like Dr. Mill said earlier, is your transition either A, seamless, so it's surprising and we don't understand it, or is it the effect itself? And is it continuing to help the show move on and tell the story that it needs to tell? Man, typos all over the place. Adherence to style. Okay, so are you what kind of show are you doing? Are you doing a hip hop show? Are you doing a ballet focused show? Are you doing a theatrical show? And are your members trained correctly in that style? Are they all presenting that style in a sense with a sense of similarity? And then the achievement of dynamic range. So are you showing us highs? Are you showing us lows? And are there large moments and soft moments? How are you using your floor? Are we taking up the whole floor the whole time? Are we having variety and range in how we're using that floor? And are we doing it in a way that creates a sense of completion in the overall effect? And then performance stamina. Are the members able to achieve the show that was written as it relates to the drill that is on the floor and the choreography, or are they getting tired 2/3 throughout and then kind of putter out by the end of the show? That all kind of ties into design analysis and the horizontal orchestration of your program. Then both is clarity of intent for show concept. That applies to both GE and design. We want to see that it makes sense. It should have clarity. Then we are going to have planned effects and transitions. Do those make sense in your show? The pacing and development over time, does it feel like it's lagging? Are we having good energy that connects each event to the next one that keeps the audience engaged? And then are we creating an immersive, united experience for the viewer? Do all the things on the floor that are happening coordinate together to create one big picture, or are they fighting for attention from the viewer? And then once again, reflection and enhancement of the musical soundtrack is key to both captions. So I'm going to give you now a general overview of what general effect is. I kind of separated it into 3 main categories: how the show communicates to the audience, the emotional, intellectual, and entertainment impact overall, and then what the show says and how the show says it. So how the show communicates to the audience are the design choices that you're making from a production concept value, right? So do the uniforms, flag colors, props all coordinate into one thematic story? Like imagine yourself going to a musical, and do all the colors make sense together? Do all the costumes make sense for the time period that you're presenting, or the style of music that you're presenting? Flag colors, do they coordinate with the uniforms? Do they pop out on the floor in a way that we can appreciate them? The mood of the song matters in relation to color choices. If you're going to do a sad, slow show, maybe bright red might feel a little bit abrasive in a more somber moment, whereas a dark blue or a purple might feel more like it's reflective of the mood that you're trying to portray. Does the music enhance the production value? Once again, did you pick a song or a mix of songs that's telling a story from start to finish? Does it give purpose to what the performers are doing on the floor? Or is the song just kind of flatlined throughout? So you can use a more flat song if you're visually interpreting it in different ways and in a creative way that creates an element of surprise throughout. Remember, it's all about audience engagement. So I encourage you to think about, when you're picking that song, where can I go with this? Where am I starting? And where am I finishing at the end of the story? And then so that also goes into dramatic contour, right? Are we having the big dramatic highs and the dramatic lows, or are we kind of giving one mood consistently throughout? Can all students perform the concept with believability? And I just put theater exercises as that's something that a lot of instructors, it kind of becomes the back burner of what we do, and it really needs to be more in the forefront. So finding, improv exercises and reminding the students that even though we're dancing and spinning flags, this is still acting at the end of the day. It's all theater, it's all performance art. And so finding a way to get them engaged with their character is something that is a great opportunity to expand your performers' believability and intent in their role. The emotional, intellectual, and entertainment impact. Are moments planned to surprise and delight the audience? That's a term that I think I remember from like Starbucks back in customer service days, surprise and delight. And I think of that when I write my shows. It's like, how can I make a moment that nobody's expecting, and and kind of give the audience a wow moment, right? Even it doesn't have to be a huge trick, but maybe something that we weren't expecting to see with a big impactful moment can be really effective, even if it's not, you know, throwing an 8 on the floor. Is there an emotional appeal to the soundtrack, and does the choreography evoke that emotion? If you're going to use a lyrical show and it's sad, is the choreography going to be more angular, or is it going to have more of a flow to it? Is the style of dance that you're using compatible with the choreography that's being shown? Is there a blend between the elements of equipment and movement choreography that create an overall mood and vibe of the character you're presenting? Is the show enjoyable to watch? When you watch the show itself, do you have fun watching it? Do you feel something when you're watching it? Do you just kind of want it to end? And I know we've all seen shows on YouTube and whatnot and had our own opinions about that, but it's really hard to do. But stepping out of your own perspective and even getting feedback from others, like the judges or friends or whoever, to say, hey, is this giving you this emotion? That's a huge thing to think about when creating your effect moments. And then what the show says and how the show says it. Are the students able to execute the show? Is the compatibility there with the training? Are the students performing the show to create that believability of character and role? And do students understand that their character and their performance is realistic? So you could have the most fantastically planned out show with all the effects in the world, but it's so important that your students are the ones who are actually portraying that show, and that they are connecting with the audience and really putting their emotional selves into it. Because at the end of the day, performance art, yes, precision is important, but we're looking for that human aspect of the performance quality that sometimes is a little bit indescribable, and it can be totally different from show to show based on your style or genre. Okay, now let me see if I can't really zoom in, but I do kind of want to just go through the different sub-captions that you're being judged on. These are the back of your sheets. On the left is regional A, on the right is A. So if you notice first, I want to talk about the difference between regional A and A. We have repertoire effect on top, which is what you do as instructors. Repertoire effect is how is the show planned and put together, and are the thoughts all there in the show? Okay, so on the regional A sheet, it says as an introductory to beginning level, whereas at the general effect A class, it's an intermediate level. Okay, so those are two, oops, I crossed it. Those are two like of really important keywords. And something I really want to emphasize in the regional A class with general effect is less is more. You do not need to have this most magical, amazing concept and show. Your show needs to be very clear. It needs to be very precise, and it needs to be focusing on training and foundations. Thanks, Colin, for sending those in. So we love to, creativity is great in the regional A class, and please be creative with your concept. However, you don't need to over-design the drill. The drill, the expectation for the regional A class is you're not doing as much triad work. You're really doing more performing in place, right? In those bigger moments. And then you're using transitional moments. They might not be as twirly as you might see in regional A, or even as dancey, but they're still going to have effect, right? So maybe someone's not doing a chasse tourgite across the floor with a big dramatic reach, moving to their next moment, but maybe they're taking an arm over and they're being just more dramatic with it. So it's that introductory level that we want to focus on in the regional A class. And so last year we put a big focus on letting people know if you're doing things outside of your class, that's not actually helping your score in the regional A division. It's actually has more potential to harm your score because it's so achievement focused. So, you know, as you move up in the class, creativity gets, or in classes, creativity like that with more complexity gets rewarded heavier in each class. So when we look at an intermediate level of repertoire effect, we're now looking at, okay, are we seeing some complexity in there? Is the theme clear and identifiable with good imagination, fully developed a blend of concepts throughout. It doesn't have to be these advanced skills, but it still needs to feel polished. It needs to tell a seamless story from start to finish. And it needs to reflect a theatrical or a story arc. So if I think about it, I think about writing a show as like writing a paper, or designing or writing a novel, or designing a movie. There's always going to be that performance arc, which I'm going to skip ahead so you can see that since I'm talking about that now. But so we have a clear beginning, middle, end, moments of arrival and release, and then payoff moments that feel earned. So you build tension specifically in your show, and there's release throughout that makes it feel like, oh, okay, you got this tense, so now we all get to relax at the end, right? So in the beginning, we have the exposition. This is setting your character, and that's in the start of the show. Let us know right away, this is who we are, this is the story we're telling, and this is why. And something that a friend said to me like 20 years ago that never left my head is, pretend that the judges are stupid, okay? Like, and I know that's a little politically incorrect, but you've got to pretend like we know absolutely nothing about what's in your head, what's in your concept, and you have to say, this is a flower. We're doing a show about flowers. Here is our flower, right? Or we're doing a show about blue. Everything we're using is blue. Or the one main prop we're using is blue, and it's going to be used throughout the show to reinforce our setting of character, okay? Then rising action. This is when musically, your show should start to grow a little bit in some way, shape, or form. There's many ways your music can contour. It's not just one set formula, but there needs to be a feeling of that rising tension. What's going to happen in this story? So in the beginning, you're setting the character, and then you need to get us intrigued and be like, oh, well, why are they here? This is you showing us why you're here. You're here because so-and-so, Romeo doesn't like Juliet, or Romeo's family doesn't like Juliet's family, and we need to see why, right? So the tension starts building throughout. Then we get to the climax, which is the high point in conflict. Okay, so now Romeo and Juliet kill themselves together because they're sad and their families hate each other, right? So how do we get to that climax is through transitional moments and through planned effect moments, right? And using a combination of those things to build into that big point, which for some of us might be a flag feature or just the biggest visual moment in your show. How are you going to get there, and why are you getting there? Are you getting there with intent, or are you just, oh, we're here? Then after you hit that moment, we have the falling action. So we're working towards the resolution. Oh, it was so dramatic, blah, blah, blah. The falling action is the events that happen after the climax. So Romeo and Juliet die. Their families probably think, man, maybe we shouldn't have been that dramatic about all this. They could have just lived and it would have been fine. And then we have the resolution and life goes on. I don't know. It's kind of a weird example, but that's just kind of the general idea of a story arc. And it doesn't have to be like Romeo and Juliet. It doesn't have to be a literal story. It can be, we're doing a show about blue. We're going to contrast that blue with something else to show how much better blue is. And then we're going to get to the climax where we're all just blueberries. And then after that, we resolve and we're like, oh, we're so glad we're blue. Like it doesn't have to be literal. It's kind of hard to explain in that abstract, but I'm going to show you a video later that kind of nails that more abstract conceptual design to tell that story. Oops, let me go back. Okay, so now quickly, I just want to go through the different categories that we're getting judged on. So we talked program, concept, and production value, dramatic contour, and pacing of planned effects. If you're doing a big effect every 8 counts or every 16 counts or even every 32 counts, it's probably too many big effects. I would say pick 2 to 3 main events in your show. You want 1 or 2 building events, you want your climactic event, and then you want your ending event. And those events are the big wow moments that are going to keep your audience bought in. How you transition into them is related to the pacing, okay? So moving from one effect to the next. Are you keeping us engaged? Where is our eye looking as we're watching you on the floor? And Are you keeping us emotionally manipulated even through those transitional moments? Whether you're using a small group focus while other people switch equipment, whether you're having multiple events going on at the same time, which really we don't want to see too much of that once again in the regional A class. That's really moving more into an intermediate skill set when you're presenting more things happening at once and coordinating those elements together so that maybe the flags are going up on 1, 2, and the rifles go up on 3, 4. That's a really basic description of how the elements can coordinate together to create a full picture. A lot of times I see on the floor, you know, one group will be in the back corner doing a little halt moment, and then there's a group moving around on the front corner. And my eyes don't usually split out like this, so it's a little bit difficult to see that. So how can we create a moment where those two pieces of choreography, which are both awesome sets of choreography, actually work together, whether they're like interlaced with people, with each other, like in one big form, whether there's two forms like an arc and a focal point that kind of support each other. So one group is doing more framework while one group is clearly the group that we're supposed to be like appreciating the most. But then that supporting arc work has to go in a similar way so that we can not get distracted by it, but it has to feel good with how the main element of focus is being presented. So that also fits into effective design of equipment, movement, and staging. And we're looking, you know, if we look at box 5, equipment, movement, design, staging, and coordination always yield successful design effects and depict the concept with quality and range, right? So range showing differences between highs and lows, giving us a wide variety of events that are happening in that moment so that we can really appreciate some difference. It's not going to be predictable. We're not going to see 12 counts of carves in a row because you're going to do something that's a little more creative than that. We're going to see speed changes in choreography to affect the mood. If the music is moving slow and then there's a big hit, how fast are you moving your flag to get to that big hit? Or are you just kind of pushing through that hit? You wrote the choreography before you listened to the music, and now there's this big change in music that we're not seeing visually, right? And that also, if you can see, they kind of tie down. When we read these sheets, we're supposed to read them from top to bottom when we're looking at how we're scoring you. And then musicality and mood. We look at box 5, fully sustained, effective, and always enhancing. So obviously we should always be writing to box 5. We should want our show to end in box 5 by the end of our season. Does that happen to everyone? No, but we push for that, and that's the goal, right? And box 4 is a great place to be too. But if you think about, okay, am I always doing this? Am I sometimes doing this? Is it more consistently sustained, or is it fully sustained? Do I have moments where the pacing drops off and the emotional quality kind of leaves the performance because we're too busy getting to our next equipment? Or am I making that a moment where I'm dancing through space and holding the audience's attention so I can get to that next moment with that emotional connection still intact? And then the bottom half of the sheet is the performers, right? So at an intermediate level, whose performers demonstrated excellence as an effect. You cannot get rewarded for effects that are not excellent. So it's very important that, you know, if you do plan an effect, that it is achieved by all members and that it is believable. Engage the audience through a range and variety of effects. So once again, how many different things can you show us to keep the show feeling fresh? At the regional A level, introductory to beginning skills are communicated with good engagement. And now we're using, at the A level, strong engagement throughout with added depth and ability to manipulate audience response. So from a GE standpoint, it's not that you need a ton more than regional A, but they need to be more intermediate skills that you're presenting and have a little bit more complexity than the regional A class. And then embodied sustained character, you were understanding and communicated effectively. For a regional A group, that could be everyone having the same style and smile. It could be just a similar facial expression. Whereas in the A class, now we're looking for greater depth in that. So is there a little more nuance in the character believability? Are the students confident, extra confident in what they're showing? That confidence is still expected in the regional A class, but it's more at a surface level. Whereas A class, now we're digging in deeper. And then the delivery of those dramatic moments, are they strong throughout with added depth and ability to manipulate the audience response? Or on the regional A class, its introductory to beginning skills are more consistent from section to section and moment to moment. So even box 5 in the delivery, they're saying more consistent. They're not saying consistent all the time. In A class, it's expected that you're consistent all the time. And then establishing and sustaining the mood, artistic qualities versus visual musicality. Introductory to beginning skills are more consistent from section to section and moment to moment. And then the qualities are strong throughout with added depth and the ability to manipulate audience response. So manipulating the audience response is when your performers are so beyond confident that when we're watching, we are like, wow, there are good A-class shows out there. You don't need to be doing the craziest things out there, but that confidence needs to be at that next level. That believability and character is literally the biggest thing of GE, I think, personally. Like, that's, if you can get us to believe you, you have so much more scoring potential. So it's really engaging your students to dig deeper into how they're performing their show, and not just going through the counts, but is there a breath quality? Is there lift in their performance? Is there, whatever style you're doing, how are you being very deliberate with that so that we can see, wow, they are trained. So it's be deliberate with all of those choices. And that is kind of what we're looking at in relation to the sheets. Okay, I'm going to dig into design analysis now real quick. So design analysis is how the show is built. It's the blueprint behind the effect. Do the equipment and staging choices make sense in relation to the music? Like, you get to a big chorus of the music, do we have all the guard participating in that chorus, or is there just a couple people? If the music is big, you should probably have more people. If the music is soft, you should probably have less people. I'm just trying to make that a little layman's termy, like thinking about the sense of unity in the phrase, right? So you have to really think of when you're designing your show from looking at it from the top of a very tall gym. And if you're looking down on that show, how can you see the motion of drill and how those elements are working together? Is one group over here doing this while this one is doing this? And then you can't like tell the difference between the two because this one's moving too fast and this one's going the opposite direction. Or are we having contrary motion where these are working together, whether these are working together, yeah, they're going in different directions, but because they're doing it at the same time, it creates an effect, right? And I'm being very abstract with my arms, but it's a little difficult for me to explain in words. So when we're thinking about drill, how can you create a sense of unity? Everyone on the floor needs to be coordinated together in a way that, yeah, one group can be sitting still while another group's moving, but it has to make sense. Is this group moving out and away from this group? Because if they do, and this is the group we want to watch, it might be harder to see these guys if they're pulling away the eye. The motion is going to take the eyeball away from the people who are sitting there. Whereas if these groups fill in this negative space, these guys come in and fill in that negative space around the planted group, then it's going to be easier to interpret and watch so that we can see, because the motion is directing the eyeball into that moment. I hope that kind of made sense. I hope you could see my hands when I did that. Okay, use of correct universal design theory in staging and horizontal orchestration. So design theory, speed, space, weight, flow, color, all of those things, how they work together. Are you using a variety in speed in how you're presenting your choreography or your drill? Are they all moving from spot to spot at the same speed all the time? That gets a little mechanical and robotic. Maybe the music moves faster so you can have a flutter run sequence, right? This isn't field show. We have room to be less mechanical with how we do drill if it relates to the music. So you can be creative with how you move people from left to right. There's no one set way to do it. However, that needs to make sense with what all is going on the floor to create that sense of unity. Is negative space being utilized cohesively? If you have like a group right here, and then like a frame right here, you have all this empty floor, it's going to feel really tight and condensed. Now, there might be a call for that. Maybe the music is sounding really dramatic, really front facing, but not too loud. And you really want that density of people to create a sense of tension, right? That almost like claustrophobic feeling can have a place. However, it still needs to be presented in a way that makes sense logically. Or can you use your whole stage in a creative way? Maybe you have 10 people on the guard and you have 2 lines on the floor. You have 5 and 5. Maybe these 5 are planted and they're focused here as the main focus, and you use the negative space and you have these ones more farther spread out. So our eye is going to go naturally to the more dense area, and our eye is always going to go to the faster motion. So if you think about how they relate together and where your eye kind of naturally drifts to on the floor when you're watching it from up top, that will kind of help you determine if you're using both negative space and your sense of motion in a good way. And then the structure of music and visual components. Is there always something to look at? There can never be a time in your show where everyone just disappears. That leaves us sitting there like, what now? And the story disappears. We need that human connection. The shows are, 3 to 4 minutes long, and we want that human connection the whole time. So how can your performers keep the stage full, even if it's just a soloist? How is she keeping our attention while everyone else is going to transition, right? And how fast are the other people moving? If they're all running to the side and you have one person holding our attention, we're going to get distracted by all those people running to the side. So maybe we need to pull them off one at a time so they don't fight against what she's doing as that soloist during the transition moment. Do all the moments connect to tell a seamless story from start to finish? So this is a really big point. Your motion you don't need to have people moving all the time, but you do need to give direction. So, okay, we had our opening rifle feature and it was a great halted moment. Now we need to get to our saber feature. How are we going to do that in a creative way that isn't just like, okay, we're going to come down to the front of the floor and then pick up and then go back? What happens when that happens is we're now watching people just put equipment down, and we lose the emotional contact of the story. So what needs to happen is, maybe another thing, you could ripple them off again one by one, or you could do a follow the leader effect and make it more seamless. So the choreography is continuing the whole time. And as they're grabbing another piece of equipment, the flags are ending their choreography, moving to the side, and then the rifles are coming out, adding on their choreography. So there's this sense of now the transition has purpose, because wow, it's a cool effect having those things move across from each other and having 2 different things going on at once, versus a functional transition, which is where, oh no, I need to make sure I only have 8 counts and I have to get them off flags right now and I have to get them to their block. So we're just going to go to the side, put down our flag, grab our rifle in 8 counts, come back out on the floor and start spinning. So we want to eliminate those start and stop moments. We want something moving, keeping our attention at all times. It doesn't have to be a flag or equipment. It could be dance or whatever you want it to be, but there has to be something to keep the story moving forward. And then lastly, can the performers achieve this show from start to finish? So design analysis really takes a deeper look at stamina of performers, versus general effect is looking more at like the drama that they're giving. In DA, what we're looking at is, can they actually achieve all of the drill moves they've been given with precision, and the choreography they've been given with precision, and not lose that energy and stamina to keep the story moving throughout. Okay, and then I'm going to go through these very quickly. We got use of design elements in form, body, and equipment. So we have a sound knowledge of fundamentals of design, or a successful blend of beginning design techniques, okay? So we're looking at not only what they're doing with their equipment, what they're doing with their body and their form, but how do they all work together? How do they coordinate together to create a full product? Motion to connect events. using speed, using movement to direct the eye intentionally. Tell us where to look. Don't expect that we're just going to find it. Design and orchestration through time and layered events. So this is horizontal orchestration. Okay, so this is having a full understanding of horizontal orchestration, which is connecting one event to the next to tell your story, versus vertical orchestration, which is how you're layering events on top of each other to coordinate to tell that moment in the story. Okay. Then we have reflection of the soundtrack. We want to see a dynamic range of efforts, lots of highs and lows. I've talked about that quite a bit. Transitions are embedded into the design and they show depth. Characteristics, detail, and nuance define the details of the composition. So a breath of air as members have that moment to show a sense of release, to give the audience a sense of release. Little nuanced details in character. Maybe not everyone needs to have the exact same face. They can make it their own, but they're just as believable as the person next to them. And then we look at excellence. This is design. The excellence standpoint is pretty black and white. It's, are they achieving, are their dots equally spaced, right? So we are looking at that. Are they on step? Is the timing of the equipment and movement choreography together? That all relates from IA into the EA scores as well. And then achievement of a dynamic range, space, time, weight, and flow. Are we seeing all four of those elements in your show, or are we doing the same speed the whole time? And then adherence to style. Okay, so are we doing a hip hop show? Do we all have that same range of skills in that hip hop set, or do some of us look like we're emulating and some of us look really good doing it? Adherence, timing, concentration, stamina. I talked about that already. Are you making it through the show? Can you have good timing throughout the show? Can you catch all your stuff throughout the show? And can you perform through it? And then achievement of characteristics, detail, and nuance. So are you giving us even more than what's given, or are you just giving us what's on the page, right? How can you, as a performer, how can your performers take their part up to that next level to make us go, wow, they're incredible? Okay, here's an example of a count sheet when we're talking about planning and design. So this is a group I did years ago. And so basically, you know, this is a very basic concept. I didn't even write in the times, but you can write in the time of where each event happens. Okay, so for example, we had a flight lesson in the beginning. So this whole section, we're explaining, like we're moving around the floor like we're in a Quidditch match, and we're learning how to fly our brooms. The Gryffindor entrance. Now we have Team Gryffindor comes out. Our show was like a Quidditch match. Then we had a Slytherin entrance. Their team comes out. Then we have the match at the climax of the show, which is always going to be about 3/4 into your show. Then we have the flag feature as a resolution of the match. And then the final event was they catch the snitch. So you can plan out your story arc. You can plan out what equipments you want on your floor. You can plan out your drill ideas and choreography ideas. Just opening a simple spreadsheet. This really helps you be able to logically put events from next to next. You can also write in transitions. This transition, I want one person to grab a flag every 4 counts, and we're going to build with the music because the music's gradually getting louder. This transition, I want to be an equipment pass off. We're going to hand off our equipment in a creative, weird way to make the transition mean something. This transition, we're going to have a focal point planted as everyone else is one by one sneaking off to grab something else so we don't notice them doing it. And then all of a sudden there's a whole rifle line next to the flags and we're like, wow, where did they come from? Right? So creating that element of design through surprise through those transitions. So that's just kind of an example of that. I want to show you a little bit of Irvington High School. This is their show from 2019, Come Together. My friend Tony Crapo wrote the show, and he did an abstract concept show. Let me open up my note real quick. Thanks for the warning, Grantis. I know I'm a little behind. But basically, he found the Mondrian sketches, and that was what this is based off. It's an art piece. And so throughout the show, they're slowly building the Mondrian art piece with these different lines, and then they add more and more colors throughout the end. It's not going to let me share, it looks like. Boo. Okay. Well, I'm going to skip the presentation, or that part for now anyway. Let's see if I can show you a little. So I'm just going to show you that much. But even in that short amount of time, that whole moment was essentially a transition. But it all had purpose, right? Every soloist had the audience's attention. You didn't necessarily know where you were going to look for the next group. It had an element of surprise, and it had an element of build. As more units were coming out with different equipment, they were working together versus fighting for each other. There's different things happening on the stage, but they're working together with each other. And then essentially that show builds, and then they come out and do a flag feature in the end. And I highly recommend watching it. I can send you the link because it's a really good show that kind of hits all the elements of design. So I'm going to throw that in the chat when I'm done with this. But okay. So applying the sheets to show writing, just very quickly, we want to choose a clear concept and style, select appropriate repertoire, map the effect moments, design creative transitions. They can be the moment. Check again, and then if you've written something, check against your design sheets. Are you hitting those boxes as you've written them? And then planning with the end in mind, thinking about which effect each moment is creating. What caption does it serve? Is it achievable for my students? Will we finish in time? Does our training program match? And will this show manipulate and immerse the audience from start to finish? Okay, I wanted to get to this part real quick because these are the questions that we had submitted. So I want to make sure I answer these. We have, the first one is, what is the best way to ensure that transitions flow smoothly and aren't forced or choppy? So I've talked about that a lot, and I hope what I've said so far has helped. But basically, look at it as creating your transition as the moment, and that's a really good way to design your show. So if you're not thinking just about, okay, flag feature here, rifle feature here, make the moment in between mean something too. Why are they going from their flag to their rifle? Whether it's a musical reason, whether it's a storyline reason, how are they getting there? Are they moving in time with the music? Does it make sense the speed at which they're moving? Is there something we're watching at all times? Is there an element maybe of surprise that we weren't expecting that makes us think, oh, wow, now they all have flags, right? So you can hold someone, like I said, hold some focus on the floor as other people are transitioning is a great way too, if you have two things going on at once, right? If you have one thing going on at once, maybe doing an add off where people leave one at a time and the focus gradually gets onto less and less people, and then all of a sudden everyone else has another piece of equipment. Just really, really the biggest thing is avoid just going down to the side of the floor, putting it down. And if you do that, choreograph it. You can get away with 1 or 2 functional transitions in your show if you have some really cool, effective, thought out transitional moments. You can get away with 1 or 2. But even as they do that, are they just setting their flag down and running to their spot? Are they performing as they go down? Because that's connecting with your audience. Maybe someone's on the 50 just putting down and they look up before they go down. It's that little tiny detail of seamlessness we want to aim for. Okay, and then this question. When moving up from the regional level to the national level, what key areas besides performer training should instructors focus on in terms of design or effect? So the regional A class is foundational design. It should be very basic with some creativity, okay? So you're gonna have more block moments. You're gonna have more halts. And then your transitions are gonna be logical and very clear. As you move into the A class, we're now intermediate design and effect. You can play a little bit more with creativity. Maybe they're following someone who's being lifted across the floor easily, like I don't know. And that lift is unwinding and people are grabbing equipment or something, or unwinding into a new form that plants on the floor as that one moment is unwinding. It doesn't have to be so much harder work. Intermediate design, right? Triples on rifles, you know, a couple flag tosses, but don't overdo it. You don't need a ton, but it needs to be achieved very, very well. So it's really about that sense of nuance is starting to occur in the national A class versus the regional A class. We're seeing a sense of maturity start to emerge from the performers and a commitment from every single member on the team. And then the regional A, you know, obviously that's a training class. So you know, your goal is to get everyone there on that page where we can all achieve. But it's who's going to get there by the end of the season. Whereas A classes, it's kind of expected that everyone can achieve in their class what the choreography that's being given, and it's who can achieve it the best. And then who's going to add that little something extra that's not quite, open class. It doesn't have to be crazy complex the whole time by any means, but you are giving us that little bit of more depth in the performance from the members. And then the last question is, I want to understand if there's a weighted grading scale when it comes to choices of theme and instrumentals. From what I understand, color guard is the visual to the music, but if the music isn't contemporary, lyrical, etc., will the scoring system change? What if it's a different genre of music altogether? Absolutely not. We talk about this as judges all the time. We get bored seeing the same lyrical show over and over again. Give us something new, but do it with style and make sure that the style is consistent. You can perform with any style you want. You will be rewarded as long as the training is evident. That's the key, is this sense of sameness from person to person as you're presenting that style. And that does get harder when you leave lyrical, because lyrical kind of blends in with modern dance and all that stuff. And that's where we've been trained, a lot of us in color guard world. But you can branch out of that. It just has to be trained. That's the biggest thing. Training always wins. Matching style from member to member is the most important. All right. I didn't get to my roundtable. I'm so sorry. That went longer than I expected. But thank you so much. I hope that was helpful. And I'm happy to stay after and answer questions at the end.
Yay, thank you, Ben. Thank you so much for your presentation and your info. I guess we could take a little break right now, just because I need to use the restroom, and I'm sure some other people might need to too. So go ahead. We'll come back at 2:05. And then we'll get started with the IA. And then we will have, if you have any questions and you're like, oh, we just finished GEDA, go ahead and write them down right now, or you could even put them in the chat, and so we can do it more towards the end. We'll have all the questions at the end. We'll leave some time for that. All right. So see you in 3 minutes, everyone. All righty. Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you got to stand up and stretch a little bit, or you can do it right now. Let's see. It's fine. Okay. All right. I have just shared my slides on the screen. Can everybody see it well? Just want to make sure. Thank you very much. Okay, so again, thank you so much for coming to the Instructor Day. I really appreciate it. I was like, I want to make sure that the circuit has something for this season, and hopefully at least if there's a little bit of information that's helpful to all of you, that would make me super happy. So if you get a nugget, this is totally going to be worth it. So again, thank you so much. I'm going to be talking about IA, or downstairs captions. So, but first, who am I? There's a lot of people that I know in here and some people that don't know me. My name is Grantis. I'm originally from the South Bay. I was born in San Jose and worked there for a while. But now I live in San Francisco. I did color guard in middle school when I used to live in Santa Cruz, and then did it throughout high school. Didn't do it in college, but I got to do DCI, WGI. Then I became an instructor. I taught parade and field shows, and of course, Winterguard. I'm a host, one of the hosts of On a Water Break podcasts. And we just did a shameless plug. We just did an episode about parades, and I got to talk with Jack and the other hosts from On a Water Break. So if you have Spotify or any place that you listen to podcasts, it's a good episode in representing NCBA. And it's also a really good resource in general. When I was learning how to be an instructor, I didn't have a mentor to teach me how to teach Winterguard. I got a mentor from Marcus Mills for being a judge. And also Colin was a guest on Parade episode 2. She did it the previous year, I think, maybe. But go ahead and check out that episode. So NCBA is definitely being represented in podcasts. But just listening to podcasts like Marching Arts Education, Marching Roundtable, that was my first one. I got to hear from industry experts on how they do what they do very well. So it's good just to hear different information and picking the things that are going to work best for your program. I've also been WGI's Future Leaders Program. I've been a choreographer and clinician. Nowadays, I don't really teach too much. I only go in to choreograph or choreograph from afar in clinic, and mostly I'm judging. I enjoy judging for NCBA, CCGC, not so much anymore, but WBA, the SoCal circuit, and as well as the Thailands. And they're having their Thailand competition right now, which is really cool. The Blue Devils just went over there. So I still love being involved, but more so from a judging perspective nowadays, and especially more downstairs. I mostly do downstairs. But what is downstairs? Who are the downstairs judges? Okay, these are the individual analysis movements and equipment. So these are the people that are closer to the performers, lower on the bleachers, and we're really focusing on how the performers are moving and how they are manipulating equipment. And I'm going to echo a lot of what Marcus and Ben have said, just to kind of really hone it in so everybody really understands. Because when I first started teaching Winterguard, I was like, regional A, but what does regional A mean? And as much as I've tried to ask people, no one's given me a clear answer yet. I don't know what the A means, but it's nice to just think of it and know it as the beginning and introductory level group. So like kind of the novice group. There's the beginning and introductory things you should be learning when you're learning a new skill or a new thing. Okay, and then the next level up is the regular A class. Sometimes we call it national A. It's the intermediate. So we went from beginner up to intermediate. Open class, of course, would be advanced. And then world class would be like virtuistic, like standard setting group. Those are like our big four levels. But no matter what, the two A classes, regional A and A, they're training based. So what are you going to train your students in? I have this really, really cute little picture of the little color guard girls that are, you know, starting position at a slam. Okay, that's like one of the first things you learn, and like how to stand with your equipment. So it's rewarding things that are going to be achieved well at the basic level, especially for regional A, and not just difficulty. We see difficulty later as we move up into like the higher echelon of like kind of Ben talked about box 5. But no matter what, these A class levels are for training and achievement focused. We already touched upon this, but read the manual. Read the manual. Colin put a link in it. The URL is right here for the newest 2026 adjudication manual rulebook. I read it every year that I teach something because I always find something new. Again, when I was learning how to be an instructor, I didn't have anybody really to teach me how to do this thing. So I read the manual, and it's quite big. It's honestly a lot to read, but I'll give you, you know, only read what you need to. And if you're doing regional A, only read the regional A things. And if there's a lot of information, you have to go back and learn more about GE, go ahead and do that. But read the manual. That is like when you play a game, you're playing games with your friend, board game night. You should probably know how to play that game, or you could read the directions ahead of time. But if you don't know and you're just kind of like playing the game with nobody telling you how to do the rules, you're probably going to lose, and you're probably not going to have that much fun. So in order for you to have the most fun and be the most successful, know the rules of the game, read the manual, read the score sheets. It will definitely help. So I picked this section out of the rule book because this is my aha moment to be like, oh, what is Regional A asking for? And I'll just read it to you. In the Regional A class, WGI emphasizes training. This emphasis on training should be accompanied by limited vocabulary with priorities on establishing solid building blocks which develop the skills of performers. The intended emphasis on training rewards those units that are strategic with an eye towards excellence and achievements. Basically, are your kids gonna be able to do this at the basic level well? Okay, it's not asking for anything crazy. No 7s or 8s in a regional A show, please. Things that they are definitely able to do at the beginning introductory level. Of course, you can put those harder skills into your show if the students are able to do it, but if all your students are able to do 5s, they're probably not suitable for regional A. When we move up to the A class, they emphasize and reward achievement and demonstration of training while downplaying the value of difficult challenges that are often beyond the developmental level of the students. This gives a competitive edge to those choreographers that are strategic with their choices and aware of their performance abilities and potential. So this is a little bit different. We moved up a little bit in level, but also giving the students like, okay, they're able to handle a little bit more difficult things. Go ahead and give it to those select students or that select phrase, but it shouldn't be the whole show. Like there's not super complex, crazy spinning and difficult hand grabs and like backhands like throughout the whole thing. It's really not that. And if you watch, I recently watched the A class WGI Scholastic Finals. There's a great playlist on YouTube. Go ahead and watch it if you want to take some ideas. As Carl Lowe sometimes says, steal. Go ahead and steal some things and little bits of other people's show. That's totally fine. And use it in your own program. But I was watching, I was like, oh, how many times did I see the A class classic just do like a carve just to get out to transition to a next phrase? I'm like, wow, even at the WGI national level, people are doing that. That's fine to do. If I am a movement judge, these are some really big things that I'm gonna really try to emphasize from a movement perspective. For regional A, training and achievement of the simplest introductory and beginning movement skills. You don't necessarily have to have kids walking on their hands and trying to do a split leap, they're probably not flexible or strong enough to do that. Maybe like a simple jeté or a little glissade, or they're all doing one count phrases, not one E and a two E and a, things that are too complicated for them to do movement wise. It's okay to have those elementary basic things in the show and showcase that, because we will reward that. A class, moving up, training achievement of intermediate skill level, move them up. Like, they know the basics, whatever type of dance genre you do. Maybe it's more balletic, maybe it's more modern, maybe it's more jazz. Maybe you do hip hop. Please, someone do hip hop, but do it well and do it justice. It's going to be a little bit higher level, and that's fine, but make sure that they're really able to understand that and achieve that well. For equipment for Regional A, of course, we've already talked about beginning level, introductory, but on the sheet, as they approach box 4, they can start to demonstrate things that are better and well trained to get into the higher level of the A class. So we might see some Regional A guards do some higher tossing, a little bit more complexity work, and that's fine, because they're going into, you know, into the direction of A, because we want all groups to kind of move up forward and more and get better and to evolve in their own rights. So that's okay. So don't just stop and be like, okay, I'm only going to be doing drop spins from a Regional A group, because that, well, there's different ways to do drop spins, and there's different complexities. There's different speeds you can do, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And of course, moving up to the A class, what is reasonable to expect the performers to strive for a high level of excellence with a specific range of the choreographed vocabulary? So how much can they try to get to the higher level while still emphasizing that strong foundation? So I love Regional A in a way because I've done it for a while. It sometimes I feel like if I go into a new program, it's kind of starting at like, oh, we have to develop them, because a lot of programs, especially in this area, they don't have many instructors, and they might not have had an instructor year before, and then you come in and you have to start training them, and that's totally fine. And what are things that we usually see when we see a Regional A color guard, especially for movement and equipments? So these are fundamentals, okay? Maybe one responsibility at a time. Maybe I'm not having my students move and spin, but I have them move and then they spin. Strong timing and unison, because they're all kind of at the same level, so they all kind of have to do the same work. Not all of them can really know, like, okay, this person goes and then I go 2 counts later. Like, it might be too complex for them, so it's okay to have, you know, strong unison moments, but of course they have to be strong. Avoid things that are too difficult for them before they're really ready. Like, oh, I remember especially this year, I love this show that I made for Monta Vista. It's the first time that I was like a caption head and I really designed the whole show from start to finish. Of course I had help, but it was really like my full show. I really wanted them to do a double, and they were Regional A, and this group had not even done marching band. We started Winterguard. That was their first competitive season. I had one kid that did Winterguard before, and everybody else was brand new. So of course that person that was the one rifle, and everybody else did flag, because everybody else was a beginner, and I really wanted to have a double for the flag feature, and they couldn't do it. My kids were not strong enough. So that prompted me. I'm like, well, I don't want it to be a single, and a single and a half stops upright. So what's the next thing I could do? And I figured, okay, have the flag end at their left side. So it's technically a single. I called it a single and 3/4, and they could do that. So I had them do that because they're ready for that, but they couldn't get it to a double. They just really, most of them couldn't get it. So it worked. It was just high enough. It showed enough color in the air, and they could catch it. I think I even had them catch in a little plie, and that was demonstrated a strong ending flag toss. So just be strategic in what you give your kids. And you don't have to layer too much. It's especially not called for in Regional A. So again, clean, confident basics will always outscore messy difficulty. A class, what's changes, especially in this class, it has training. All of your students should look very well trained, but slightly longer phrases. Maybe they don't just do 8 count moves and then change to something else. They do 16 or 32 count phrases where they don't stop and they keep going. Okay, more body and equipment layering, like they're not just standing in place and spinning or moving. They're doing both at the same time, and maybe while traveling, so having the triad there. And achievement drives reward. Okay, we will give you more points, we will give you more appreciation, and really dig in deeper if they're able to do all the things. Okay, how IA is scored. So again, individual analysis. If you look at the sheet, the spine, or the very middle, what Ben talked about for his upstairs caption, this tells you what we're looking at. Okay, there's 2 sections of it. The up top for downstairs is vocabulary, and the bottom is excellence. So what skills are your students doing and how well they are performing it or doing it. Okay, and we call these the points of comparison. What we're comparing your guard through other guards, or the guard that we're currently seeing, to groups or individuals. In that middle spine, I just wrote them out up here so you can kind of see them more. I really want to talk about 2 because it was a little confusing to me when I was reading the manual, and after talking to people, I got a little better clarification. When we talk about range and variety and range, Ron had a great example of this. Think about a crayon box, okay? A crayon box when you're in elementary school and they only give you 8 colors, okay? That's a variety. There's 8, the variety of different colors, yay. But once you get older, you might get more crayons, and maybe a lot of crayons, and there are different hues of the blue, and I like from really dark blue to sapphire to light baby blue, and then that's the range. Okay, so the variety of crayons or colors you have, and then the range. So that could be like, oh, I do a drop spin, and then there's the drop spin that goes into double time, and then it's done at the 45, and maybe on a prop, and that's it. And then also tossing, the range could be a single versus a double versus like a 45. Like what range or how high can you get that of the different varieties that you have? Okay, and then dynamic range. And Ben talked a little bit about this, but space, time, weight, and flow. Especially for me as a downstairs, I would love to see more of this expressed within shows. If you don't know what space is, it could be thinking of a rifle. And I have my rifle in my right hand, and I need to get it to my left hand. I could take a direct pathway of passing it off, or I could take an indirect pathway, and that's the use of space. Time is things that are fast or slow. So maybe in movements, you are lifted up, and then you slowly contract down, or you can do that really fast contraction. Weight, if it's heavy or light. So the students moving throughout the ground, are they being really heavy? Are they like demons and they're really like trudging through the floor? Or are they really light and balletic? Maybe they're, I don't know, they got a lighter part in the song and they're really lifted up. And then flow, is it bound? Are we really like together and everything is really like staccato-ish? Or is it free? Or is it really freely moving throughout the floor and it's a little bit more open, not as bound? Okay, so those are the 2 biggest ones I wanted to explain, because I know it was hard for me to really understand exactly what it was. But, and of course, the rest of them, are they doing equipment and body together? Is it compatible with what they've been trained on? And of course, a mind towards safety that was added recently to the WGI sheets. And of course, it's the same thing going through excellence, but how well are they doing it? Are they demonstrating it well? Are they giving these blended challenges? Is their breath? Please have your students breathe and makes them look not so bound or congested all the time. It really relaxes them, and continuously having that trained to support their vocabulary. Some common writing mistakes, and we see this a lot, usually earlier in the season, but only writing to your strongest performers only. Like, man, I really want to have this 5 because Sarah is really good at saber and she can toss a 5. Everybody needs to toss a 5. Maybe everybody else is ready for just the triple, and then maybe Sarah can have like a soloist moment. And of course, movement that doesn't support the equipment, because the body is manipulating the equipment. The body needs to be strong enough to support the weight of that rifle or that saber. Maybe your students aren't quite ready to do weapon. Maybe it's just a full flag show, which is totally understandable and totally acceptable. Even at the regional A level, they could do swing flag for part of it, or different little flags. Or there's a bunch of different things that you could do. It doesn't necessarily need to be weapon if they're not muscularly developed for that. Equipment judges will still judge any piece of equipment that's spun. So it doesn't quite count for, what do we say? Not qualified equipment, but we say standard equipment. But it's still equipment nonetheless. So you can give your students like a cloud prop or maybe a star or anything else that they can manipulate, and they'll still get credit for that, but it has to be done well. It has to be within their training domain. And the judge might say, for things that are, haphazard, how can the whole group succeed? And you got to ask yourself that as an instructor. How can I have my students have the best show that they can have with the talent that we currently have, with the skill sets that we're training on? Okay. That's like the biggest thing. So key takeaways. Know your group, especially from upstairs, what kind of show is going to work for them, but also what kind of equipment manipulation or spinning choreography are they going to do well? Are they really a limber group? Are they really flexible and you want to show that off? By all means, do that. Are they more kids that kind of really like a more like R&B, hip hoppy feel type of movements, and you are a little bit more balletic? Then you might actually need to learn something that is going to be, more conducive to what they currently do. Depending on how long you stay at the program, you can definitely train them up to be more like you, which is fantastic. But kind of meet your students where they are if you're a brand new instructor to that program. Of course, if you've been there for a while, it's all you. You're the instructor. You tell them what they're going to do because they're your team. Designed to their strengths. Maybe your students, you're not good at rifle and your students don't want to do rifle. Who says you have to do rifle? Maybe you want to do saber and just do flag and saber. You could even just do rifle. It doesn't matter. There's no basis of what you can or cannot do. You just have to have a certain amount of equipment time to be eligible or to not dock points or get disqualified. And let excellence create an effect. That's the original OG way to generate effect. Is it clean? Everyone loves a clean show. Everybody understands that. And they have to do it well. They have to manipulate their equipment well, and they have to dance or move really well. Doesn't matter what kind of genre of dance. They just have to all do it the same way. It is not your job to design a world-class show, but it's your job to prepare performers for the next step. If you have a regional A group, great. Get those foundations in there, and hopefully you can get up to the intermediate level, and then you get it to the intermediate level. Hopefully you get up to the advanced, and then open the advance, and then maybe you don't see your kids anymore, and maybe they go march an independent group, and then one day they'll be in a world class, and you'll be like, wow, I set them up for success when I had them in high school or middle school. And that could be, your personal thing. That's what I really enjoy seeing my students go on to go march drum corps or Winterguard. It's like, okay, that I set them up to be able to do the next thing. And that's what we always want our students to do, because there's a whole bunch of lessons in color guard, Winterguard. And that's what we really love to see, our students grow and get even better, maybe even beyond us. I have some submitted questions here. These were submitted from the form. Could you provide more clarification on what the upstairs and downstairs captions are focused on? I think we already went over that. But will we have a downstairs caption at all shows or just championships again? This question for sure, I think we talked a little bit about this, but I think it's because they could actually see the judges. So the judges downstairs captions are always there. They're usually further down. Some shows, let's say like Rodriguez, is so condensed, like it's not very high. So the judges always look like they're together. But for sure, the downstairs will always be below the upstairs. And there's always going to be a movement and equipment judged there. And then the other ones will be further up. So you might not see them, but they will always be there. There's always at least those four judges total: equipment, movement, design analysis, and general effect for NCBA. Next question. We are starting up a color guard program that has not been at our school for over 10 years. I want as much information as I can to support this program. So I definitely know how that is. When I taught at Monte Vista, they hadn't had the marching band for, I think, at least 7 years. And it's hard because you have to teach the students everything from the very, very beginning. Like even how to roll up a flag, how to put it in a flag bag, to like, where does the flag bag go? You have to bring your water. It's just a lot of teaching. And I'd say, don't worry about really big things. The biggest thing that someone told me is like, they just need to have fun. Their first year, they just need to have fun. And you're setting good habits from the get-go. Like, we start on time. We have a movement block. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, again, especially if you're regional A. It doesn't have to be anything, they don't have to do big old grand jetés, but they're starting to learn how to move across the floor. They're stepping in time. That's huge from a movement standpoint. How are they able to pay attention in block? You know, that getting strong to really stop their equipment, even if it's, you know, slow revolutions or small revolutions. But just setting those really good habits from the get-go, that's going to take you a lot further than just trying to like make a really powerful show that, you know, be super competitive, design smartly, and then you'll get there. So that's my biggest thing, and I'm sure we can hit more on that later. How do we choose between featuring our skill and keeping it achievable? Featuring your skill, I hope you mean the student's skill. Again, using that example, maybe there's somebody that can toss, you know, a quad, and they're able to do it really, really well, but the rest of your students can only do like doubles. Give that person a soloist moment. Maybe it's a ripple. It's a rifle ripple, double, 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 quad, boom, and that's the exclamation point, and you get exclamation points on the end of your sentence, and that, you know, it's effective and it's well designed, and they have good movement to support getting into that, and they have strong equipment skills to be able to adequately perform that. So that's for that one, and just keep on being encouraging to your students and making sure that you're able to showcase what they can do and work up to where they probably can do by the end of championships, especially leaving them enough time for things to look clean. And with that, that's the end of my presentation. I really wanted to leave a lot of time for people to ask questions. So if you currently have a question, feel free to start to ask it now. You can put it in the chat, or you can, I'd really love to hear you talk. We can go back and forth for the remainder of the time. Yes, Park Middle School has their hand raised.
Can you hear me?
A little bit. Could you speak a little louder?
Yes. How's that?
That's better.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't realize my microphone had like bent backwards. So now looking at the regional A and specifically with the middle school caption, we're no longer supposed to be striving for a triad being throughout our entire show. We're supposed to be thinking about more singular successes, if that makes sense. I just want to clarify, because we've always been pushing to try and have as much triad moments as possible, which may for middle school only be a couple of times, but
I would say triad where achievable, and the triad can be presented at the most introductory level throughout also. So singular efforts where appropriate, and then triad at an achievable level, at an introductory skill level throughout. So not jam-packed, but yeah. Is that
awesome.
helpful?
Helpful, yes.
Okay.
Jordan.
Hello. How do you separate the subcaptions of regional A? So like regional AAA to regional A.
Me, Grantis?
Yeah, go ahead.
So you said that for the regional A. So regional A is what we would classify as like the standard for the sheet for regional A. Regional AAA is the lowest on that sheet, and then of course regional AA is in the middle. So basically we have the subcaptions because there's such a wide range of skills in NCBA and in circuits around the country. So a lot of circuits have these subcaptions because it gives groups an opportunity to compete with groups with similar skills and achievement. So we kind of look at it as we have the old like novice, intermediate, advanced. So like in our mind, it's like kind of like that. I don't know if everyone was around during that time, but it's just subsets on the same sheet. So the highest performing level skill groups are going to be in the regional A, and then it's going to cascade down beyond that. But like I should also say that being in regional AA or regional AAA isn't necessarily a bad thing. You're just grouped with people of the same skill set, and you should still demonstrate excellence, and achievement should be priority in all the subclasses. And it could fluctuate from year to year depending on the number of groups also. So Colin and I look at everything very closely during evals and collaborate with the judges very early on in the season to make sure that everyone is placed with like competition. So Colin reviews all the eval submissions, I review all of them, and then we talk about each one together to make sure that we're getting people where they need to be. And sometimes it changes throughout the season as well. People surprise us. So people will turn in an eval submission and we're like, yeah, that's probably a regional AA. And they're like, whoa, we were wrong. That's actually A class. So it could change throughout the season, but it fluctuates.
There was a question in the chat.
Oh.
Go ahead. Or
You want me to read it?
yeah, if you want.
Okay, so Mona asks, what recommendations do you have in helping your kids become stronger with the limited time you have each practice so they're able to attempt harder tosses? Grantis, you want to take that?
Yeah, there's a couple different ways you can do this. We're all really fighting for time, not only time in facilities, but also our students' time. I know coming from a school that was really high on academics, it's like, okay, we have to, find time to get better at this particular thing in our lives, which is color guard. But that's the thing, it's like you're helping them. One part is like showing them, how to do that toss, but it's upon their responsibility to get better at it. And if they're not able to do it, then it's just not going to be in the show. And you could be honest with your students like that. Because some students are really like, man, I really want to do this triple parallel. It's like, okay, well, I use this phrase all the time with my students, like, all right, show me that you can do it, and it's in. And I had one student that was like, I really want to do a double turnaround. I'm like, all right, Ian, like, show me you can do it 10 times in a row. And if you can do it 10 times in a row, because he was like really adamant about it, and he had never done color guard before, his first season Winterguard ever. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm like, go ahead. And then he showed me. I'm like, okay, it's in now because I trust you. You can do it. But also because maybe it's a facility thing. Maybe you can use the cafeteria or something with a tall ceiling, or you do have to go outside and your students have to wear gloves underneath their color guard gloves so they're not being cold. You do whatever you can, but a large part is teaching them well on your part, them practicing it on their own, and being smart of like what tosses they're actually going to do. They don't have to do a ton of hard tosses in a show, especially most of us are in regional A or at the A class level. But just picking like, okay, let's try a 45 toss. Okay, can we do that? 45 and a half. And you don't have to do anything like a lasso toss crazy or like roll into the grounds if they're not ready for that. But just being strategic of like, okay, we want to work on this skill. Can we really realistically get it to where we need to be by champs?
I think
I
Ben's
see.
gonna take
Yeah,
Fu's
Fu's
question.
Okay, so Fu asked, can you give or explain and give examples of vertical and horizontal orchestration? It's a great question. And I kind of rushed through it in the presentation. So vertical orchestration is layering of events, right? So how many things are happening at one time? Do you have just flags on the floor? Okay, great. Now, in that flag moment, are they all doing the same thing, singular efforts the whole time? Or do you have an A-B part, right? Maybe two things are happening at one time. That's adding some vertical orchestration, adding depth and variety to your performance, because now you're presenting more than one concept at one time. I'll go back to the Irvington video after I explain it to try to, because I think I can show you both of these examples in that video. Horizontal orchestration is your pacing and planned effects and transitions and how they all connect to each other from start to finish. So it's your timeline, essentially, right? From 0 seconds to 3 minutes and 1 second, or whatever your show length is. We want it to be 3 minutes and 1 second. No, I'm just kidding. But as close to that as possible, because less you do, the more you can be competitive, right? Less to clean. So horizontal orchestration would be, how does one moment connect to the next event? How are you using those transitions to get from your opening pose to your first statement? Are they running out from a clump? Are they all moving at one time? Does it build? Is there a sequence of events that takes you from one place to the next? I hope that kind of explained it, Fu. I'm gonna pull up the video if that's okay real quick, just because I think it's a good example of both of those things.
And I think also, Ben, in the video, it could answer probably the second part, like what are some examples of GE plan moments other than a big toss and a ripple? And honestly, when you look at this whole opening, that is like all very much a planned event that leads up to that moment where that person tosses and catches the rifle.
Yeah, exactly that. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna put it on full screen. It's 3:44. Do we have time to watch the whole thing, or should we just do part of it?
You should do the flag feature. Isn't that the really big moment?
Yes. Let me build into the flag feature.
Yeah.
Let's see. Where Okay, so I'm going to pause real quick. So if you noticed, they moved off from their other moment. They were having their flag moment, and it's kind of sorry. So they had this flag rifle moment, right? And so now they're showcasing going to the back, and they're making this not really transitional, like functional, because they're dancing through it. They're giving you expression, even though they're facing. Okay, so now the blue flags come out right here, right? So they're creating, oh, there's something happened, right? So the rifle's directed focus, so we could look at the flags on the right well, they had a duet moment on the right. The rifles hit those poses, and then we got to appreciate the flags on the right, and then surprise, the blue flags come out. And this is, I forget what it's called, but this is him essentially building the art, taking all the colors out one at a time to create a bigger moment. So this is horizontally orchestrating transitionally to build effect into the flag feature. And this right there, that was a great example of what not to do. I love Tony. Don't make him mad at me. But the floor emptied out for like 4 counts and nothing was happening. We were watching transitions. So he could have put one more little thing right there and it probably would have sealed the deal. And I lied, that wasn't building into the flag feature. But so they showcased all the colors and now it's starting the flag feature where they come out with the flag with all the colors, which is the culmination of the show. Sorry, last thing. And they're using the rifles to keep our attention going while they're building the idea of the flag. So it's kind of like they're crossfading the idea of this flag rifle moment into the flag feature. So it's not just stop one moment, start the next. Add-on. Okay, I'm going to stop there. So if you notice, they added on members one by one as the music was building, right? So then they have the climax of the piece is the flag feature moment where that percussive element comes in. And then he's using the entire ensemble. Now he's playing with space, time, and flow all at one time. He's using bound moments. He's using slow moments. He's using quick moments to pick up those little nuanced differences in the music. And it's still regional A level choreography. It's angles, right? And then it's a drop spin sequence. And as they're moving, they're not doing sautés and jetés and all these things because they're not trained to do that. So then they're going to put in a nice grand plie once they're parked. So we get that movement expression and we get to feel like it's one cohesive project. So I'm kind of touching on a lot of things at once, but the horizontal element of it is how that moment connected into the flag and rifle moment connected into the flag feature, left this seamless quality by bringing out that soloist. We were still able to watch the rifle work resolve, feel the completion of that moment, and then instantly there's a new idea presented. And it didn't make sense for all the flags to come out at one time, and it would have been impossible because they had people on rifle. So he used the backdrops in a smart way so they could be behind it, and they could add on one by one to build with the music into the climax of the piece. And now we're going to resolve out of the climax. It's going to get less and less. Right, and that's the example of what Grantis is saying is showcase your performers that can. Okay, that cool kid clearly had done guard before or was really into it and got his double turnaround, really wanted to put it in the show. It was a great ending. So they didn't need everyone to do it because it's regional A, but you can still showcase those skills. Okay, that is my example. I hope that helped.
And Fu, also like an example of like generating effect besides a toss or a ripple that we see in that show is the use of color. So like really prime example.
To add to that too, you can consider the aesthetic, emotional, and intellectual range of effects that can be generated with general effect. So you can consider the fact that they're using the primary colors that's triadic, that ties to the Mondrian. There are different ways you can think about what is red, thinks hot, blue is cool, yellow is happy, so that like an intellectual aspect to the effects. Then there's emotional, which is self-explanatory, then the aesthetic. So you always are thinking about how you are generating effect through those three lenses. And that's also a point of comparison.
Exactly that. Thank you. Yes. Like really think about effect isn't necessarily just a toss. Like it is the build, the excitement. As I was watching that, I was like, I haven't seen the show in a minute. So I was like, oh, where do I look next? Who's going to come in next? Oh, wow, it's still building. Oh, okay, they're still spinning. The phrase is long, like they're continuing on. So they probably put their more advanced people on who have the stamina to complete the whole phrase first, and then brought the less experienced kids in over time for the amount of choreography that they could handle at their skill set. So using that as an effect to build more with the color and with the staging at the same time to generate the build in the music, which made me, as I was watching it, be like, yes, it's getting better and better and better. And then the music dies off, and then visually it got quieter too, right? And then they went back to the beginning concept of kind of sneaking out from behind the props and being playful, right? And that's that emotional aesthetic or emotional and effect.
Cool. We have about 8 minutes left. We can always end early if you want to, but anybody else? Does anybody else have any questions? They can just be general or about the season. This is a great time because you have the VP of Winter Activities here on the call. You have me, Colin, Ben. Tremendous opportunity to take that. Anybody has any more preguntas? Last call?
Sorry, I guess I had like a quick like random question, but they started doing like the show blurb things. Do judges read that before they see the show? Okay. That was
Yes.
okay.
It's
yes,
helpful, but
yeah.
it's only so helpful, right? Like it only gives us a little tiny snippet of what to expect.
Got it.
Yeah, so if there's something that you really want to have the judges know, or like that's your opportunity to communicate whatever you want the judges to know. So we will reinforce that there's supposed to be reviewed at the beginning of every show, and it's put on the tablet next to the tally thing. So
Okay.
judges will be able to review it, and we oftentimes like print them out because it's easier for us to read them if they're all printed. But yeah, to Ben's point, you can only fit so much in there, but if there are parts of the show or a concept of the show that you're like, I really want the judge to know this and pay attention to this or like be aware of this, you should put it in there because it's really helpful to us also.
Yeah. To go off of that, what if a judge like doesn't understand, even though you've put it in the show and they're watching your show and they don't understand your concept or your storyline? What do you do then as a judge and a choreographer designer?
It's a good question. First, I would say that I would, like, as a designer, ask myself, why doesn't the judge get it? Did I communicate that well enough? Did I communicate it in a way that resonates with somebody that may not know about my concept or theme? I think that I may start there. And also on the flip side, it is kind of the responsibility, especially for GE judges, to be really well read, really, the GE caption especially is tough because everyone comes to the caption with different experiences, different journeys in life with different interests. So I would say use the show statement to help communicate that, use critique and clinic shows to help communicate that. And then if there's still something weird going on, you can always reach out to me and say like, hey, I've tried to communicate this, they're still not getting it. Colin and I can talk to the judge. The judges and they're really open to that feedback. They get it all the time from me, from Colin, so they're just used to feedback. So if there's something you feel a judge is not getting after you've explained it in settings or like in the show statement, just let me know. Reach out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I piggyback on that real quick?
Yeah.
So I do the statement just because sometimes I feel like, I don't know, I feel like more information for you guys is better than not enough. But I guess my question would be, especially when evals are due, would it be smart for us to have that to you at that time? Especially because we're only giving you as much as we possibly can. We start in January, so like I have 4 weeks to get you something for 2 groups, and that's a lot to process.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if it would be available at least to us to be able to give you guys that information before along with our videos.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good feedback. And I think it's something that we can easily add into the eval submission.
Okay.
I'll just connect with Rachel on that. Because actually, it's funny because Colin and I have reviewed the shows in the past. We're like, ooh, I wonder what this and then we get the show statements. We're like, now it makes sense. Or we see a more complete version of it. So I actually think that's really good feedback and a really easy thing to integrate into the submission form. I'll just talk to Rachel about that. And then if anyone wants to submit it afterwards, they can as well. But yeah.
Yeah, because we're having, I'm being really ambitious this year. So we have a lot of backdrops, but they're not going to be ready by the 31st. So, and they really kind of sell the whole idea of the show. So it's like, I'm not going to be able to give that to you guys. So I'm not entirely sure how to like tell you what our show is technically about without like actually explaining it. So.
Okay, maybe instead of like submitting the show statement, we just put a field in there that says like anything that you want us to know about this. So like there will be backdrops and the backdrops will blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would, I mean, even the show statement, I mean, when we ordered our uniforms and ordered our flags, we had to put kind of like, okay, this is what the show like overall is about. So, that they got the feel of what exactly we were after. So it was kind of like, I don't know. I feel like giving you guys a little bit more information before you even like take a look at our 30 seconds that we can give you.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for the suggestion.
Any other questions? All righty. I just want to thank everyone for coming. Thank you so much. Hopefully this was very helpful. I'll hit this home again, like write to your kids' strengths, read the sheets, please, 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 over this break. Go ahead and read that adjudication manual. And also like even look at the timing in the manual because it says how much time your show can be. Some people go a little too far. In the middle school, we have a special thing about that, but like you don't have to have a 10-minute show. It doesn't need to be that long. Yep. And thank you so much. And I'll be sending out a survey. Please do the survey. It really helps us to know what we can do for next year. But until then, you all have a great winter break. Have a great winter season. And we cannot wait to see your shows. Thanks for coming.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.